Hello everybody, this is Gwyneth Isaacs speaking here. Oh my gosh, the egg situation. Boy oh boy oh boy, that's so rigged. Designed to destroy the poultry industry. Many years ago, here's an egg story time. Many years ago, my dad, was a tomato farmer. He had a market garden in Geraldton, and he used to grow tomatoes. There used to be a railway line from Geraldton to Perth, and if you got your tomatoes down to the siding by a certain hour each morning, the tomato train would pick them up, take them to Perth. They might end up in Melbourne, they might end up in Tokyo, they might end up in Singapore. There's a whole industry in Geraldton, West Australia, around tomatoes. There's still a few tomato growers there. Tomatoes grow really well in Geraldton, West Australia, but they don't grow during the summer, they grow during the winter because it's a zone 10, USDA zone 10. Frosts are really rare. I mean, you might get one frost every few decades in Geraldton. It's coastal. You can grow bananas, you can grow just about anything there during the winter. During the summer, baking hot. Hot winds come off the desert, just like 12 hours of the day, from like 2 a.m. in the morning until 2 p.m. in the afternoon, just constant hot winds off the outback blow through Geraldton out to sea. Then 2 p.m. comes, 2 p.m. arrives, and the locals say, oh, the doctor's here. Anyone who's lived in West Australia knows that that's a slang term for the sea breeze. The sea breeze has arrived. The doctor's here because, rescues everybody. They're going to live for another day. It's really horrible, the desert wind, and a lot of it's actually manufactured because the deserts were created by humans who tried to grow wheat probably somewhere it shouldn't have been grown. They can't grow wheat outside of Geraldton during the summer, but they try and they plough the ground. This is my lunch, by the way. Lunchtime. I won't eat too many more of them. That's why, Geraldton. But then some bright spark in the West Australian bureaucracy decided to shut down the rail line. The tomato industry died overnight because there was the highway system really hadn't kicked off yet. And couldn't get tomatoes from Geraldton to Perth and elsewhere quickly enough. You really couldn't before they would start to rot, because Geraldton's really in the middle of nowhere. But rail could do it. But, Anyway, after the government basically deliberately killed the Geraldton tomato industry, and because the tomatoes were grown during the winter in Geraldton, there's the off season, so the tomatoes were sold at a premium price, but somehow, God, people are brilliant, aren't they? Dad went into raising chickens, layer hens. So did most of the other people who used to be tomato farmers. They converted their tomato farms to chicken farms, and that became the new big thing. They could do it because, like I said, there was at that time, I'm not sure if it's still there, large wheat cropping areas outside of Geraldton. Actually, there is still a lot of wheat cropping outside of Geraldton. And it's during the winter, not so much during the summer. During the summer, the paddocks are left bare. They are a desert, so they behave like a desert. But during the winter, it rains, and then you can put a wheat crop in. If it rains. Which most, 6 out of 7 years it rains. So that one out of 7 years or 1 out of 8 years, you know that it's not going to rain, and if you've got any sense, you won't even try. But because there's a lot of wheat grown, the chicken farmers used to buy the seconds wheat. Maybe it was cracked, maybe it had too much moisture, maybe it had bug infestations or something. For some reason, it was not going to make good flour. So that wheat farmers would sell their seconds grade wheat to the chicken farmers, and the chicken farmers would feed it to their hens, and their hens would lay eggs, and everybody was happy about that until the wheat board found out about it. The wheat board banned the wheat farmers from selling their wheat directly to the chicken farmers. They said, oh, no, you got to sell the seconds wheat to us. Guess what they were doing with it? They were turning it into a chicken feed, and they were selling it to the chicken farmers. Ho, 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 ho. What a fucking scam! Ah! That makes me so angry. Oh, you had to sell your eggs to the egg board. And all of these at the time were private corporations, operating as cartels. Dad didn't know it. Nobody else knew it. They all thought that they were branches of government. But this is communistic control structures that were operating in West Australia at the time. The wheat board still exists, by the way. It's now called West Farmers, openly operating as a corporation. And guess what their main business is these days? Bunnings Warehouse! Full on. One of the major big box stores in our country. I still go to Bunnings sometimes. Some stuff you can't get anywhere else other than Bunnings Warehouse. It's a real home maintenance place. If it has to do with home maintenance or your garden somehow, building that even sell houses. I've got one of my best friends lives in a whole house that was sold by Bunnings. that sold demountable buildings. You could bring up Bunnings and say, I'm not sure if they can still do it. Oh, excuse me, can you sell me a house or put it on my land? And they would. Yeah, we can do that. One of my best friends lives in a former second-hand Bunnings house. It is a Bunnings house. They have floor plans. You buy a whole house off of Bunnings. I don't know if they were owned by Wesfarmers at that time, but they're certainly owned by Wesfarmers now. Wesfarmers is a big box retailer as well. They have the Wesfarmers stores, which are stock and station supply, stock and station, all your livestock supplies, their fencing materials, troughs, gates, all your farm stuff. And they buy wheat. So they are the wheat board. They just branched out into all these other businesses as well. The government back in the day made the wheat farmers, made them sell their wheat to Wesfarmers, the wheat board, basically. What a racketeering scam. God, I hate these people. And as soon as that happened, the wheat board took all the profits of the seconds wheat and basically put all the chicken farmers out of business, because the chicken farmers utterly relied on that grain at a cheap price to feed their hens and make a profit. And as soon as the wheat board got a hold of the seconds grain that the wheat farmers were feeding their hens, they jacked the price through the roof, got all that profit for themselves, and sent every egg farmer in West Australia to the wall. That's the truth. That's what happened. My dad went through it and he used to talk about it. And after that, he opened a boarding kennel. They said, oh, they won't get a hold of that. So if they had dogs into board, that was good. They had money. If they didn't, but I hope your job in town's doing well, Dad. They struggled for a lot of years on that farm, and 99% of their problems were government bureaucracy. This is why I do these videos. This is deeply, deeply rooted inside me. This is a multi-generational battle every time I see these corrupt municipalities and all their fucking bullshit. I remember poor old Dad. And they ended up pretty well forcing him out of town because he was the poor joker who actually stood his ground and said, no, you're not fucking... Well, he didn't swear much. He did occasionally drop one. But he said, you're not doing it. But then they eventually did get too much for him. And they forced him out. He sold his farm in Geraldton. He loved that farm. He sold the farm in Geraldton and bought a suburban property at Rotorua, New Zealand. Got a job. He always had a job. He was a master engineer, very, very skilled man. He always had work. About a year later, I came along. I was born. I have 6 brothers, sisters, 6 siblings. One of them died. That was Danny. He's buried in Rotorua. He got melanoma and died. But, I was born at Rotorua, grew up in Rotorua because of the way that the government harassed my dad. I would sometimes see him, a grown man, crying, caught up, because this was another occasion. This was at Rotorua. Somebody vexatiously sued my dad. That's a whole nother story, but vexatious litigants are really, really destructive. He hadn't done anything wrong. He lived his whole life for other people. So clever, so good, such a Christian, wonderful man. Look, I look around me and I see almost nobody. Almost nobody had a mum and of my age had a mum and dad in my friend group, had a mum and dad that actually lived in the same house for that person's entire childhood, stayed married, loved each other, built a household, had jobs, did the whole thing, just lived normal lives. And I've grown up and realised how rare it is for people to actually have grown up in a family that had normal lives. Mum, dad, kids, house that they owned or that they were, quickly paying off, that they didn't have to move every few years. How rare is that? I know I started off talking about eggs, but I think of those chicken farmers that have been done out of business because some government bastard came to their phone and said, "Oh, gotta PCR test your chickens." If anybody came here and said to me, "I'm going to PCR test your chickens because of bird flu," I would tell them to get fucked. I would say, "Get off my land." I said it to the Victoria Police, standing toe-to-toe with the local senior sergeant with my nose 1 inch from his nose, saying, "Get off my land. You, get off my land." And I would do that if anybody came here saying, "Oh, we're going to PCR test your chickens," to say, "You are in fraud." Those PCR tests are a fraud. They are not an accurate scientific test. The inventor of them said that they were not intended for the diagnosis of any disease, that they were just designed to pick up the tiniest particle that you could have been exposed to at any time in your life. They're not an accurate diagnosis of disease. And I would tell them to fuck off. Get off my land, or you are going to be sued to kingdom come. That is what I would say. And that's what I would recommend anybody who has any government official. Mate, you got to think about one day, many years from now, you're going to be lying on your deathbed. You're going to be on the doorstep of facing God. What are you going to say to the Almighty of how you've lived your life? If you've been one of these scumbags, there's still time to repent. You've got to turn around. You've got to go to God on you, weep and cry and apologise to the Almighty for all the harm that you've done, and you need to stop doing it. Because you're ruining lives. You're every morning, every day, making the world a worse place, making the rest of us suffer. And what you sow, you will reap, if not in this life. I don't wish you any harm, by the way. You know, I'm just sitting here on my farm, just doing my thing. You know, porky cats, pussies. Puss. Pusses and puppy dogs. You know, Peaches and Bria. Lily, the horse. You know, I'm just minding my own business. I don't want to hurt anybody. But I will defend my land legally and lawfully against all comers, because it's my land. My land. I own it. You know, when I pass on, it's going to be passed down to my heirs. That's how it is. That's how it should be. That's how it always was. So there we go. But if you are a government official and you know you're doing the wrong thing, unless you're a total psychopath, you know your conscience is bothering you. You need to go to God and you need to repent. And you need to start doing the right thing. You need to do good rather than evil. You need to do the right thing rather than the wrong thing. And if everybody did what was good and right and true, instead of what was easy and convenient, what a different world we'd be living in. We'd be living in a good place. I live in a good place because I stood up for my rights and did what was good and right and true, legally and lawfully. I learned about British common law, castle doctrine, and I lived it. I stood my ground, and I found that these bastards did not have a single freaking leg to stand on. As it is, these people are going to have really succeeded in putting a big dent in the chicken industry. They'll probably come out with a whole lot of freaking bullshit regulations and more red tape. It will make it more difficult for people to have egg businesses into the future. And strangle those little people. That's what they think of you. Grab them by the throat and squeeze. That is their attitude to you. And the only way up, the only way for you not to be a victim is to stand up for your British common law rights and legally and lawfully, non-violently say no. You're not doing it. And every time that somebody says no, you're not doing it, and means it, and has evidence, stands up for their rights, eventually they more or less get left alone because there's lower hanging fruit. And that's how it is. I wish I didn't have to keep making these videos. But I wish that these evil people would go away. If a genie showed up here and said 3 wishes, and I would say, right, first wish, I would not wish for $1 million. I've had a lot of money in the past, and I've learned that, unless you've worked for it, it doesn't stay. If you've worked for it, it stays. But if you haven't worked for it, the temptation is there. I wouldn't wish for $1 million. I would wish for the whole bureaucratic structure that underlies our modern world to go away. Of course, it would be hard for me initially. It would be hard for everybody initially. It would mean that my unemployment benefits would go away. That would be okay. I would find some other way. But to not have the government bureaucracy as a gigantic dragon in the background all the time, it would just be a tremendous relief. Tremendous relief. It really would, I would feel like I could really relax for maybe the first time in my life. Because it's been many, many years since I've really, really been able to just relax. Except at night. I sleep well at night. I sleep really well. Gets to a certain hour of the night, I cannot keep my eyes open. I'm out to it. It's just, and I sleep through the night. I wonder if these bureaucrats, these corrupt police, these politicians who sell our country, wonder how they sleep at night. Apparently, a lot of these big rock stars like Lady Gaga famously said in an interview that, there's demons standing at the foot of her bed and she can't sleep alone. Wow. I guess that's what happens when you sell your soul to Satan. Boy, oh boy. 2 out of 3 police marriages end in divorce. 2 out of 3 police marriages end in divorce. 1 out of 3 police marriages experience domestic violence. That's probably a little bit higher than the general population. Having a mum and a dad as a little kid, who loved each other, respected each other, just were in love to their dying day. That's the difference between following the devil and following Jesus Christ. And pretty soon people will realize that really there is no middle ground, that you always end up following the Almighty, following the guy downstairs, following Mr. Barbecue. God bless you all, and I'll see you later.